Guys, my name is Luke. I'm one of the elders here at Cornerstone, and I just want to thank you for joining us through this study of Paul's letter to the Philippians. Today we're going to look at Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 18. And in this section, Paul starts it off. In other translations, there's a word at the beginning. It's therefore. It's not in the New Living Translation, but in other translations it's there. And what Paul does with that word is it's kind of like a hinge word. He wants you to think about what he just ended with, or what he ended with on the last section we looked at, in light of what he's about to say to us. So let's read verses 12 and 13. It says, "Dear friends, you always followed my instructions when I was with you. And now that I'm away, it's even more important. Work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him." Now, maybe you've heard verse 12 a little bit differently, where Paul, it's worded sometimes to say, work out your salvation. And that has led to some people to believe that salvation is something you have to earn, that you have to do the right thing or say the right thing or be good enough. But that's not what Paul is saying here at all. And we see in verse 13, the key to it really is for God is working in you. What Paul is saying is that we are to work out, we're to express what God is working in our hearts. And God does that through Bible studies like we're doing right now, through times of prayer, and even when we gather together and worship together. God is using all of those to transform our hearts. Now let's keep reading. In verse 14 he says, "Do everything without complaining and arguing, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people." And I don't have to elaborate at all on the current situation. We're in a very dark and confusing time. We don't even know what tomorrow holds for us. But we, as a church, we are to gather together and to be that bright light by living out lives for Christ. And how do we do that? Verse 16 shows us how to do that. It says, "Hold firmly to the word of life. Then on the day of Christ's return, I will be proud that I did not run the race in vain and that my work was not useless. But I will rejoice even if I lose my life, pouring it out like a liquid offering to God, just like your faithful service is an offering to God. And I want all of you to share that joy. Yes, you should rejoice, and I will share your joy." And Paul also uses some language in here. He says, "I will be proud that I did not run the race in vain, and my work was not useless." That's Paul doing the same thing. He's working out what Christ was doing in his life and what God had changed his heart to do. And the big takeaway from this section really is that we all have an influence on somebody's life. We impact people every single day. And maybe you're a parent or a grandparent, or you have influence over kids in some other capacity in your life. This section really is critical for you to know that you impact that person's life. You impact that child's life by the words you say, your actions, and that can be kind of convicting sometimes for us. I'm a parent, I have 2 daughters, and there are times when I wasn't a bright light at all to them. But maybe, children aren't in your circle. Maybe it's a coworker or a neighbor or even somebody at the grocery store. You can have an impact on someone's life. The words you use, the actions you use, live clean lives, shining like bright lights, imitate Christ, have the same attitude as Him. Those are all things that we can do to shine as bright light, not only as individuals, but as a church here at Cornerstone. And so you go today and you go be a bright light in someone.